we had this beautifully designed cohort. We were ready to rock and roll. But as an anthropologist, we pay a lot of attention to doing formative work before we start our study. Anthropologists are kind of like children, and they always say, because why, because why? So I wanted to make sure we were asking the right because why questions, and so we did photo voice, which, thanks to Christopher, he did a good job describing. I don't need to go so much into the details, but basically I would give Will Masters a camera and say, Mama, take pictures of things that influence how you feed your children. And I thought we were asking the right questions, but to my surprise, we were getting pictures like this back of lots of different types of water in lots of different ways. And then when we would do the interviews, explain to us, Mama, why you took this picture. Women would describe choosing between buying water or buying food. Or they would talk about being like very afraid or often even injured by their husbands when water wasn't available in the house. So, to Stuart's point, that which count, measure stuff, we needed to measure our water insecurity. And I looked for a water insecurity scale that would be appropriate to use in our household surveys. As it turns out, there's great ways of measuring water in the physical environment. There are lots of hydrologic indicators. We have national level data on cubic meters per capita. The water poverty index isn't great. I hope none of you developed that here. It's medium. And then, of course, we know a lot about measuring water quality, but there was kind of like crickets at this level. There was nothing analogous to the household food insecurity scale. So we developed a water insecurity scale from the bottom up that was appropriate for this region of Kenya. I'm not going to go into the details for that, but I will say we understand now a lot of what's happening with water insecurity. These are some of the perceived experiences, and it's really rich. This is under review right now. I'm happy to talk about it with any of you. And then we also now know how to quantify these women's water insecurity experiences. This article just came out this month. Godfred Boateng, a Ghanaian, is first author on this, my postdoc. So this is available. We know how to measure water insecurity in Western Kenya. But water insecurity and scarcity isn't unique to Western Kenya. So these are based on satellite data, but McConan and Hoekstra estimate that at least 1 month a year, 4 billion people don't have sufficient water based on satellite data. So a couple years ago, Amana made their first call for grants, and I thought this is perfect. This is an interesting, this is a good fit. Unfortunately, Amana didn't think it was a good fit. And they didn't fund us the first time around, but I persisted. And I started learning a lot about scale development. And scale development, I will say, is not for the faint of heart. You don't get to just put some questions and call them a scale. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of very, very technical language on how to develop a scale. And then there's also like a couple of sentence description of how to develop a scale, and I thought we really needed something that fell in the middle. So I really wish that this article had been written a couple years ago, but I now present it to you, save you hopefully some months, some gray hairs. And in this article, we describe sort of 3 phases of scale development: figuring out which items to ask, then seeing how they hang together, and then finally putting them all together. We reapplied to Amana the next year, and we're successful. Thank you, Amana, very much. And yes, they gave us money. And we now have this really wonderful consortium. We're calling it the HWISE Consortium for Household Water Insecurity Experiences Scale. And we promised we would do this work in 6 sites, but we're up to 27 sites so far. So in each site, we talk to at least 250 heads of household, or the person who's most familiar with the water situation. And we have a lot of data with something like 7,000 households at this point. And I'm not going to share all of those numbers with you. No one wants to see all that data. But I will just give you a little peek from what's happening here in Accra. So Justin Stoller and Raymond Tutu collected data a year ago. And they found that about half the people in this neighborhood were worried about not having enough water. About a quarter of people thought that they were drinking water that was unsafe. About a fifth of people changed what was eaten. And a lot of them weren't able to earn the money that they wanted to because of problems with water. So where are we right now with this process? We started with 32 water insecurity experience questions. We're now at 18. This is a meeting of many of the site PIs in Chicago earlier this month, including my children. And I hope that we get it down to 12 items, but I put a question mark there because Ed Frangillo and I are in heated debates over which items we can drop or not. But the idea is that we are going to wrap this up one way or another by the end of 2018, if not sooner. So once it's in these large-scale surveys, and I say once because I'm doing the hard work of developing the scale, but the interesting stuff is getting it into nationally representative or just large surveys so we can test these hypotheses and so on. And once we do, we can test the prevalence, we can determine health consequences, and we can monitor and evaluate interventions like we're using this scale in the Shama Maisha study you heard Eli Weke talk about yesterday. Thank you.